Today, I have a special guest to help me go through some what I think are very, very big stories. Sean Spicer, thank you for joining me.
As always, it's a pleasure to be with you, Stephen.
So, Trump and JD Vance, I mean, these guys, they're all over the country just promoting incredible conservative values, selling out arenas. I mean, it's incredible to watch. Trump does this 3-hour podcast. It's supposed to be 1 hour long with Joe Rogan. It ends up getting over 60 million total views. I think it's like 37 million on YouTube. The rest coming in hot on Spotify. People are watching almost the entire thing. Took me 2 days to get through.
I'm with you because I don't feel bad now because I've been breaking it up. I just keep, when I go outside for a walk, I'll play like another 20 minutes and then another 20. So good. I'm glad to know I'm not alone.
Yeah, my wife and I had a long drive, and so we turned it on, and I gotta say, it's the sharpest I've ever heard Donald Trump. His answers, his charm, his wit. I mean, this guy was firing on all cylinders. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, that is like a massive success. I know he got a ton of listens when he was on with Elon Musk. Elon Musk has a lot of pull and influence, but Joe Rogan hits a certain demographic that Donald Trump was trying to attract. Your thoughts on that interview?
Yeah, two things. The first is that I'll take the latter that I wanted to make first because I think it's the easy one to get out of the way. Rogan put out a tweet that said, hey, I invited Kamala to come on. They wanted me to fly somewhere and limit it to an hour, and I wasn't going to do that. And so it's interesting because the bottom line is she couldn't handle it. And I'm not like, it's just she couldn't handle Rogan. I mean, he asks probative questions. He covers a lot of ground, and she has 5 talking points. And so I just want to get that out of the way. Let's just be clear to your point. She couldn't do this. Second, to the Trump point, I think the media strategy has been brilliant, right? Trump even commented at one point, right? The week before he did Patrick Bet-David, he's done the Nelk Boys. These long form interviews are great for him. I mean, he was telling this story. And look, Stephen, I worked for him and I've been around him since 2015. So just shy of 10 years. And like, I love the long form because I will learn something and I'll hear something. And for me, like the way I look at Trump is that all the policies. He's made them clear, like he was president. But I love the personal stories. He got asked a couple questions about his family, talked about The Apprentice, kind of why he thinks his worldview on certain things. I enjoy that. Like I love the long form. And he even said, I love these long form things because I can actually talk. I enjoy the platform. That's why I love having a show. That's why I love coming on with you because it's not like 5 minutes, 3 questions and, sound bites, right? You can explain yourself. You can get into nuance. And I think that he is well suited for it. Not everybody is. I mean, it's just to be blunt, and that's not a critique. Some people are really good at sound bites and statements. I mean, if you want to critique yourself as a communicator, there's certain things that I know I'm not good at. But I think that like when you look at Trump, he's particularly well suited for the long format because he's a good storyteller.
Yeah, I agree. And he had some incredible stories. The thing that I liked was Joe Rogan really got him to open up about the abusive tax collecting on the American people, why he believes that tariffs are a good route, how he's not going to destroy the country by making other countries pay tariffs in order to get access to American dollars. Just having 5, 10, 15 minutes to develop that thought process so that the American people can understand why he could help them have more money, why he could help them pay less taxes, why the government is the problem, not the solution. I found all of that rhetoric to be really rich and detailed and interesting to listen to. It also really helped me understand. It was like watching Donald Trump think for a minute. Like you could see the wheels turning on what he wants to do for the American people. I don't see that with Kamala Harris ever.
Because she doesn't. I mean, even like the couple interview. She did one really, like, Call Her Daddy, which is more of a sex podcast than anything else. She doesn't feel comfortable in her own skin. I mean, that's why, like, one of the things that's interesting is that people are always like, she should do this. It's not like, I mean, I will tell you this, the people around her, senior staff of the campaign, are smart people. Like, I don't agree with them policy wise, but they're smart people. They know what they should do, but at some point they know that she can't do it. It's the same thing with Biden back in the day. People were like, he should do more of this, and he should. It's like his staff wasn't dumb. They just knew that he couldn't handle it, right? I mean, it's. I'm trying to think. It's like, you know, sometimes you go to the gym or something and you're like, you know, that machine or that amount of weight, but it's like, but I can't do it. It's like, you know what you should do, but you're physically incapable of doing it. She can't do long form. She's not comfortable explaining her position. She's not comfortable in her own skin. And they know that. And that's the thing. Like I said, Trump's a very good storyteller. And I enjoy listening to these conversations, as do you. And I think that's why you've got whatever it was, 60 million is, I think, the number you threw out. It's like people for 3 hours. Who wants to listen to anything for 3 hours, right? People talk about walking out of movies after 2, but they want to hear this conversation because it's compelling. And we want to get to know this guy a little bit more. And it's funny. There was a poll back in the day. I'm not going to get into the nuances because it was fun, but we were going over this subject. And people said, you know, they don't know about this particular subject, but the good news is that they want to. That's what we had found out in the polling. And we were like, oh, okay. And they were like, well, just so you know, like, we asked people about Canada, and they said, yeah, I don't know about Canada, but I don't want to know anything about Canada. And so part of what you want is you want the audience to want to know more, to learn more, to engage, to stay with you. And that's what I think is really interesting about these long form interviews. And I don't know, like, Trump has broken so many norms and barriers in this campaign about how he throws out ideas, the mediums that he goes on. And I also think that, just, you know, for you and me, the credence and support that he's given to independent media has been huge. You know, I don't know. I mean, I think traditional media's got at least one more cycle in it to some degree. It's like it's limping towards the finish line. But look at what's going on now. People are craving more than what independent media, what legacy media has given us. And the reason, I think, is that kind of what you and I are talking about. Like, when you hear sometimes CNN or NBC tell you about a tax policy, I mean, you mentioned tariffs. They're like, Trump's economic plan, which is derided by 50 million Nobel Nobel laureates. And you're like, oh God, it's got to be bad. And then you hear Joe Rogan and Donald Trump talk about those policies and why they support them and what it's going to mean. You're like, oh gosh, that's not what I heard on CNN or NBC. And you start to engage more. And so I also give him a ton of credit for the way that he's engaged and the support that he's given to independent media, because it's so important. I mean, the NBCs, the CNNs, ABCs, CBS have become so corrupt and so in the tank for the left that this has been so great to have platforms, shows like yours, shows like mine, where people can go and engage in a much different way because they're not getting what they want out of these legacy outlets. Yeah.
Well, a testament to what you're saying is Kamala Harris's average speech is less than 7 minutes.
That's like the warm-up act for Trump.
Yeah, I mean, Trump has stories about golf that go longer than 7 minutes.
That's true. I was at Arizona on Friday with him in Tempe. I mean, he goes on for, 2 hours. So that's, yeah, you're right. It's like one story will take that long.
Yeah. So 7 minutes. Meanwhile, he does these 90-minute rallies, and, people are like, their bladders are bursting. They're like, okay, we love you, but like, we got to go to the bathroom. And he just keeps going. In fact, Joe Rogan said he came in, he didn't go to the bathroom. He talked for 3 hours, and then he walked out the door to the airplane and never went to the bathroom. And Joe Rogan said he was just dying. Like, oh my gosh, I've got to go to the bathroom so bad. Now, I know
that's me. I couldn't have lasted that long without a break.
Yeah. I read today that now Kamala Harris.
Hey, Stephen, if I can, I apologize, but you got me thinking. It was funny. I was telling someone, I guess it was Sunday. I had been out in Arizona for 2 days. I did the Trump rally Thursday, and then I rallied, spoke with a group of phone bankers in Phoenix on Friday evening. And I was exhausted. And I was laughing because I was like, dude, he left here, went to Vegas, spent the night. Then I think he went to Michigan. And I was just like, I spent a day and a half and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to go to sleep. This guy is like, where's next? He lands in Vegas, then flew to Austin, then from Austin to Michigan. I mean, the guy just doesn't stop.
Yeah. He really has a work ethic that is admirable. I need to take just a 45-second break. Do you owe back taxes? Pandemic relief is now over. Along with hiring thousands of new agents and field officers, the IRS has kicked off 2024 by sending 5 million Americans letters telling them, pay up or else. So I want you to understand something. Do not waive your rights and speak with the IRS on your own. They are not your friend. Tax Network USA, a trusted tax relief firm, has saved over $1 billion in back taxes for their clients, and they can help you secure the best deal with the IRS. Now, whether you owe $10,000 or $10 million, they can help you. Whether it's business or personal taxes, even if you have the means to pay or you live on a fixed income, they can help you finally resolve your tax burden once and for all. I want you guys to call 800-958-1000 for a free private consultation. Again, call their 800 number or visit tnusa.com/Gardner. Okay, back to the interview. So, as you mentioned, Kamala Harris, they are not going to go on Joe Rogan. I don't think that they want her to go on there. I think it would be 3 hours of embarrassment, stuttering, hyena laughing, unable to connect the dots. But you know who is going on is JD Vance. JD Vance, I believe, is going to go on, and they're going to quickly, do that show. I'm excited to hear his story. He's got an incredible American story of coming from poverty, drug addiction, struggling with work, raised by a single mother, raised by a grandma, goes into the armed services, becomes a Yale lawyer, has a book, a movie. I mean, I'm excited to hear his story because this is a guy that could become president of the United States. I want to know more about him.
Yeah. The funny thing about JD is I'm not like best friends with the guy, but I've known him for a while. And to your point, he's got a great story, but he comes across really well. Like he's got a great demeanor. He's very, very affable, very smart, but not condescending, very everyman. And when he got picked, a lot of folks were like, dude, Trump's doubling down on himself and da-da-da-da. And almost like peeling back an onion, probably every time the guy does an interview, he was on all the morning shows, the Sunday morning shows this past Sunday, people will call me and be like, dude, you're right. I watched JD. Man, he's impressive. He wows people. And it's funny because if you look at the two vice presidential candidates, they've gone in the opposite direction. Everybody was like, well, Tim Walz was picked because he was Coach Walz and he knows how to fake hunt and he can wear a flannel and a camo hat. And the more we learned about Tim Walz is that he's a fake, authentic liar. He's not who we were presented with. And the more people learn about JD Vance, they're like, wow, this is not the guy that we thought he was. He's really smart. He's likable. He's intelligent. He's compassionate. I think that it's just been hysterical, the tale of two VPs.
Yeah. Well, when I pray for the country, I don't pray for Trump just to win. I pray for conservative values to take the country for at least the next 12 years. And I
Why
think
12?
Well, we have Trump and then possibly JD for 8.
Okay, good. I'd like to have, if we can extend that. I'm 53, so if we can make that 30 years, it just cover my lifetime.
I just meant as a minimum, right?
Okay, minimum.
And I'm not saying that JD. I mean, he might go. You know what? I don't want the presidency, and we have Ron DeSantis or Vivek or somebody else. But 12 years of conservative values. None of this woke bull crap, DEI bull crap. I think we see a huge change in the country, but it does start with Donald Trump. So today, or let's see, just within the last 24 hours, Steve Bannon, Trump's biggest bulldog, one of the biggest media figures, gets out of jail. His first comment is, Nancy Pelosi illegally locked me up by weaponizing the justice system. I'm asking you to vote for Trump so that justice can be served on Nancy Pelosi. What are your thoughts on Steve Bannon? What are your thoughts on his comments right out of jail?
So I don't think he'll mind, but I texted him right after he got out of jail, and he wrote, "Empowered, brother. Just made it through a federal prison at 70. Let's roll hard." I mean, this is a guy who, I think they made him more determined than ever. And he is going to, as President Trump would say, fight, fight, fight for the next 7 days. Those guys made a mistake on his jail sentence. They should have kept him in, because that guy's going to come out, and he's had whatever that's 4 months to come out and plot his return and make sure that President Trump gets over the finish line. I mean, I think this was ridiculous. This was a sham committee, sham sentence. Double stand. I could go on, but Bannon was the wrong guy. I mean, man, he's going to come out and I think spend 7 days going hardcore. Well,
his mind, it has such a talent for strategy and policy, and he is a resolute bulldog. And so I think you couple those together. I don't see Trump ignoring him. I don't see Trump not listening to his ideas. I think Steve Bannon and his bulldoggedness and strategy are going to be a major part of the next 4 years under Donald Trump. And I think it's going to lead to a better country.
Yeah. Well, look, I think because Trump was president for 4 years and he got to see the system, he got to see who was there to support him and who wasn't. When he comes back, it's going to be like laser focused. Like, here's what we need to get done. Here are the right people to do it. It's going to be a very, very focused, I think, second term in terms of getting the agenda enacted.
Yeah. Why do you? I mean, you're noticing this. I'm noticing it. MAGA voters. I mean, I've got Democrat family that are noticing this. Why is the left, Obama, Kamala Harris, why the mainstream media, why are they going so hard in this final week of MAGA voters and Donald Trump being Hitler and the Nazis? I think most moderate Democrats see through it. I don't think they appreciate it. But why? Why lean so heavily into making MAGA voters Nazis and Donald Trump the Hitler leader?
Because it's, I mean, to be blunt, it's all they have. I mean, I played on my show today Donald Trump's closing ad. They just put it out at 2 minute, right? And he basically ends it by saying, Kamala broke it, I'll fix it, right? Here's my record of results. It's not hypothetical. I've been in campaigns for 30 years. It's always this proposition. I will go in and fight for you. I'll pass this. I'll do this. And then 2 years later, you explain why you didn't get the things done or whatever. We haven't seen this in over 100 years, a candidate who was president. And he can literally go, so what are the number one and number two issues? The economy and immigration. So he can literally say, okay, here's what I did on the economy, jobs, inflation when I was president. Here's my record on the border, on border security, on keeping you safe. This is their record. What do you think? Now, Stephen, no matter who you are, if you're being objective, if you say, I care about the economy, you don't have it. I mean, it's an easy case, right? I mean, like if you were a lawyer and someone said, make the case that the economy, you would sit back and say, all right, well, this is easy. Here was unemployment. Here was gas prices. Here's interest rates. Boom, boom, boom. You know, I rest my case. Okay, you win. On border security, same deal. I was down in Arizona, Stephen. I went for the first time when I was out in Arizona, Thursday, Friday. I went down to Cochise County. Because I'm not joking when I said this. I go, I can't not go. Unlike the vice president, I wanted to make sure I made time. I wanted to see the challenges. I came back with my resolve. I had no idea the extent to which A, how easy it is, and B, the damage that's being done in so many different ways. Like impact, I mean, like just the drugs and everything. I mean, like I knew, but I hadn't seen, and I'm a visual guy, so I was like, I want to see this. I want to see the wall. Anyway. So if you care, and by the way, I asked the agents down there, if you could tell the administration to do 2-3 things that would immediately impact illegal immigration and drugs, etc., what would it be? And they literally, without hesitation, said 2 things. 1, enforce the law. 2, finish the wall. I said, enforce the law. What do you mean by that? What does that mean? They said, coming over the border the first time is a misdemeanor. Coming over the border second time is a felony. One of the deputies is like, I've caught the same guy 29 times. And so they, and not only, and honest to God, so these guys who are running drugs, the lead guy will lead people over. Let's say he's got 15, 20 people, gets them into the country. And then the leader, whatever you want to call him, the scout, the guide, they basically just walk down the street and give themselves up because we give them a ride back to Mexico for free and go, okay, don't do it again. We don't arrest them. We don't cite them, nothing. And so what do? They do it again. But they literally walk down the street and say, hey, I'm here illegally. And we go, oh, do you want to go back to Mexico? Yes, please. Free ride. So we drive them home. That's how bad it is. That's how easy it is. So I digress, but the bottom line is President Trump's record is easy. She can't talk about those issues. What are you going to say? I don't suck as much as he does. Please trust me because, yes, I got an F or a D on these, but I'll work harder even though I didn't. And I did. I mean, you can't. So what are you left with? Name calling, taunting. And so you're just, it's fear mongering at its core. I've been doing, as I said, campaigns for 30 years. Fear sells. It does. And so you're asking me why they are resorting to this in the final days, because they have no choice. This is the only effective tool they have, which is to scare the crap out of people to say, you realize he's Hitler dressed up as Mussolini in Chavez's body. They don't have anything else. So they're going to figure out a way to scare you, to say, I know the economy matters to you. I know inflation's out of control. I know interest rates are still high. I know you're worried about fentanyl and human trafficking and all those things coming in because of illegal. But trust me, democracy's under attack. And he will take away democracy. Because if you can say to yourself, geez, gosh, wasn't he president? Did he do any of the things that you're talking about? No. Well, then you're screwed. So you can't focus on that. So the only card that they can play is the democracy's under attack. He's really bad. And you don't want to be called him. So it's like by the way, if you vote for him, you're guilty too. You're a fascist. You're a Nazi. You're a bad person. So it's trying to guilt you into not voting for him because that's all they have.
Yeah, it's almost like preemptively programming buyer's remorse or something.
Yeah. I mean, listen how they chastise. Look at Michelle Obama, Barack Obama. They chastise black men in particular because they might vote for Trump. What are you doing? What did Michelle Obama say the other day? Your sister, your mom, your wife, daughter all depend on you. Your rage shouldn't be excused by. And I was like, what? Your rage? Like they're pissed.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous to me. Like, I'm not a big fan of Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, but I don't think that they're Mao or Stalin or something. They're just terrible at running the country.
Right. They have bad policies.
Yeah. Like, anyway, to me, it just seems so ridiculous that they're just leaning so hard into something that even a lot of their voters feel they've taken it too far. Okay, let me go back to the Joe Rogan thing, but in a different way. Glenn Beck over at The Blaze said that because you kind of mentioned this, the mainstream media, maybe they could limp along for one more cycle, something like that. Glenn Beck said he sees possibly this next round of presidential elections where there are no debates. There are no traditional sit down with 60 Minutes sit down with CNN. They literally bypass the mainstream media and they go right to a bunch of independent influencers that can get them more airtime, like Joe Rogan, some of the others that you mentioned, Patrick Bet-David. I would love to host some of them on my show. Do you think Glenn is onto something that down the road they'll just say, why would I subject myself to the lion's den where I can go somewhere else and social media will help me reach the people in a more fairly presented manner?
Absolutely. I mean, look, it's a numbers game. Look at the trajectory of cable, right? More and more people are cutting the cord. More and more people are getting their news from shows like ours or getting, tuning in. My channel on YouTube has just grown exponentially, especially over the last several weeks. We do a thing every morning. It's on my YouTube channel at 9 Eastern called The Morning Meeting. Myself, Mark Halpern, this guy, Dan Turrentine, who's a Democrat. He's with Hillary Clinton, chief of staff. He worked for Pelosi. And the idea is we do this. So there's a call every morning that each network does their own. And I said to Mark Halpern, it's like 6 months ago, maybe longer. I said, it's kind of funny because Halpern's been around forever. I said, what if people, any American, frankly, anyone around the world, could watch this morning meeting? Because that's how the networks make decisions about what to cover, who to assign. And we had both been on, both when we were both associated with Newsmax. And I said, it'd be kind of cool if people could see what one of these calls was like. So we came up with this morning meeting. And now people by the thousands are tuning in every morning to listen to us in a kind of just explain the news, Democrat, Republican. Mark's a journalist, so he gives his sources about, and the idea is, my show is very much, I'm open about being a very strong and proud conservative, but the idea is in this show, I give my perspective, Dan Turrentine, again, Clinton, Pelosi, he gives his perspective, and people can kind of hear the takes on policy and campaign decisions, etc. But your TV's not doing that. There's nowhere on TV. And people who come on every day, and like I said, we do this every morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, and there's a growth of this. We've got candidates and consultants and who come on because they realize that's where people are now. They're tuning out MSNBC, they're tuning out Fox and saying, I don't want to. So I think Glenn is absolutely right. Now, look, Trump stood firm. I was so proud of him for saying no to 60 Minutes because Leslie Stahl lied about how they handled the Hunter Biden laptop. It was a patent lie. They said it was disinformation. And he said, I want you to admit that you lied about it. And they were like, we didn't. And they did. It's obviously on tape. But we need to, as conservatives, I'm glad that people are doing our shows. But I also think stop saying yes to CBS. They don't like you. Nora O'Donnell made it very clear last week how much she hates Republicans and President Trump. Why are we giving them the time of day? Now, I do think that like JD Vance, as we're talking about, he just gives a master class. But like the folks at ABC, Jonathan Karl, are you kidding me? Martha Raddatz? These guys are horrible. They hate Republicans. They hate Trump supporters. So why are we going on there? And I think that the more that we build up our audiences, Glenn Beck is absolutely right that people are going to say, why go there when I can go on a Joe Rogan and get 60 million people to listen to me for 3 hours unedited? Remember, on 60 Minutes, they edited that. Do you think, I know it was all favorable to Kamala, but can you imagine if Trump was on, it would have been like, how do we edit it the opposite way? So you go on Joe Rogan for 3 hours, you go on Patrick Bet-David, whatever, and you're getting an unedited conversation, long form that people enjoy. That's why I love, when I have guests, when you have them, it's like you can have that conversation. You don't have to worry about being cut and edited and spliced. I think it's fantastic. So I think, look, we'll have a new candidate in 2028. And the reason I say that is I think if it was Trump, it would happen because he would be like, yep, this is what we're doing. I think that there's one more cycle, depending on who the candidate, where it might happen. But Glenn's right. It's either going to be this cycle or next, and then it's over.
Yeah.
And I also wonder how many shows stick around, right? Like as I said a minute ago, look at these ratings. At some point, it's not good business for these legacy outlets to stay in business. They're already talking about cutting salaries all over the place because they can't afford these guys.
Yeah. Let's talk about journalistic integrity, I thought this was very, very interesting. Jeff Bezos, billionaire of Amazon, he bought the Washington Post, and he, along with the LA Times, refused to endorse Kamala Harris. Well, they had over 200,000 people unsubscribe from their monthly fee. So he's taken it on the chin, right? But he's a pretty bold guy. He became, one of the richest men in the world for a reason. And he has let people know over at the newspaper, not only are we not endorsing Kamala Harris, but we're actually going to hire dozens of conservative writers because we need to bring back journalistic integrity and we need to be a trusted source of truth. It really caught me off guard. In fact, let me just, I'm just going to pull this up. This is from Colin Rugg over on Twitter, but these are Jeff Bezos' words. Most people believe the media is biased. Anyone who doesn't see this is paying scant attention to reality, and those who fight reality lose. Reality is an undefeated champion. It would be easy to blame others for our long and continued fall in credibility, and therefore the decline in impact. But a victim mentality will not help. Complaining is not a strategy. We must work harder to control what we can control to increase our credibility. Presidential endorsements do nothing to tip the scales of an election. He then goes on. This goes on for a couple more pages, but I thought good for Jeff Bezos for coming out saying, I'm not putting my reputation on the line. And while we're talking about it, we need to actually increase our credibility by having both sides of a story, telling the truth, not leaning into the echo chambers. What are your thoughts on his comments?
It's interesting because I think that, like, left to his own devices, I mean, look, he's looking at this from a business perspective. And from that, I'm glad he's leading the way, because this gets back to like woke ideology that hopefully a bunch of these other companies go, hey, I mean, what was the old saying that Michael Jordan said, that Republicans buy Nikes too? I think that these guys, the question I have is it too late? I don't think anyone on the conservative side is like, okay, you got Sean Spicer or Stephen Gardner to write a column in the Washington Post are going to go back. The reporting has sucked for decades. I'm done with it. I don't think people are going to resubscribe. I in some ways I appreciate it because he's at least acknowledging something, but it's sort of like telling somebody who has, stage 4 lung cancer, who smoked 5 packs a day, who kind of says, hey, I should quit smoking. It's like at some point, unfortunately, it's too late. The damage has been done. And I don't know that you can come back from this as a company. The Washington Post is in the camp of the left. Jeff is right, but I think it's too late.
Yeah, it may be, but I at least appreciated him.
Well, and that's why I'm saying I appreciate the fact that, because other companies might say we can't go down this hole.
Yeah. Well, and the other reason that I like that, and again, I'm not saying I'm a Jeff Bezos fan, although what he built, you have to sit back and go, wow, he built a business that loves its customers and thinks about them, constantly. But he was one of the first major business leaders in America to tell Biden, don't pass this Inflation Reduction Act. All you're going to do is make inflation go higher.
Right.
You can't print money and expect it not to affect the economy. He was the first business leader to say that. And I remember thinking, okay, this guy's pretty well known for being a Democrat. He rubs shoulders with these people. But then you find out from President Trump that he's taking private phone calls from Tim Cook at Apple. Mm-hmm. He's taking private calls from the CEO of Google.
Cool.
I thought that was really interesting that they're all suddenly making these phone calls to Donald Trump instead of to the Kamala.
Oh, because I think these guys see, Stephen, the one thing that those guys know better than anybody is I have an old saying, data doesn't lie, right? Every once in a while, I've got Waze on in the car and it'll say, turn it right and then go left. And I'll be like, I know this area. You should. And I keep reminding myself, the Waze, the data that it's using doesn't care that I know a secret route. It's saying this is quicker, take it. And they know what they're seeing in the early vote. That Donald Trump right now, I think, is ahead in all 7 battleground states. I predict that one of the 4 tier 2 states, Minnesota, New Hampshire, New Mexico, or Virginia, will also flip to Trump. But that's another. But I mean, my point is, these guys see what everyone else is seeing. The data's going, and they're being smart business people.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. That's a good example. Okay, a couple more questions. I appreciate you coming on, Sean. As you mentioned, the data leads the way. Momentum. If I had to guess, I would say momentum is definitely in Trump's favor. The wind seems to be blowing into his sail. Some of that is the guy hasn't taken a day off in like 60 days. Multiple interviews every day, rallies, go. Kamala Harris has to take off 2 days in order to prepare for a softball interview on NBC. She still ended up looking foolish. What do you think the energy and the panic level is like in the Kamala camp?
I think they're nervous. I mean, I've talked to enough people on the other side that will admit that they're like, well, it's not as bad, but, and look, when you're, the key in politics is you want that wave to crest, 5-6 days out, so that you can't, it's going to hit you're riding the wave into the beach. If you're ahead, you don't want to be the one trying to hold back the wave. And if you're on defense, you've got to figure out a way to kind of try to push back. And she is against the wave right now. She knows that we're in the final days. They don't have momentum, and they're just throwing stuff at the kitchen sink saying, what else have we got? And that's not a good place to be in politics. But going back to the data, you look at the early vote numbers out of Nevada, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Georgia. It's not good for them.
Okay, well, that's good for us. Okay, final question. What do you think Trump's first 5 days look like back in office? Is he just like buried in paperwork, executive orders, fixing the border, coordinating with the military, coordinating with economists on how to, get the price of goods down, putting pressure on Jerome Powell to lower interest? Like, what do you think those first couple days look like?
Yeah, it's a great question, because in 2016, we didn't know what we didn't know. And we came in, and it was like to be honest, it was very chaotic the first 48, 72 hours, maybe even first couple weeks. Now that he knows what to do, he's going to use that transition period to get all of these things lined up with precision. And they're going to come in, and my guess is that first day, maybe this into the second, is going to be rather epic. Executive order after executive order after executive order on the border, on immigration, on inflation and other economic things. I mean, it's going to be a series of actions.
Okay. Yeah. I have a feeling he's going to be writing Donald J. Trump more than ever.
Yeah.
So
I might need a stamp.
Yeah. Sean, I always enjoy our conversations. If people want to follow you online, listen into that morning call, where can I push some traffic for you? 2
best things. One, if you go to my website, SeanSpicer.com, you can sign up for all things Sean Spicer. Free newsletter there twice a week, just gives you insight. But then the YouTube channel, Sean M. Spicer, every morning at 9 a.m. for the morning meeting. My show every night at 6 p.m. Great guest, great insight. We had today James Blair, the political director of the Trump campaign, went through all the battleground states with him, all the tier 2 states with him. So we're really down the home stretch trying to bring insight into exactly where we are on that early vote, on the absentee vote. Sean M. Spicer on YouTube, SeanSpicer.com on the web.
Okay. I will put links to both of those. Thank you so much for coming on. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Always appreciate being with you, Stephen.